was one of the key organizations in SB 403 when California bill was being passed. And same with Canada in Toronto, when Toronto School Board passed caste as a protected category, we were a part of them as well. So we are trying to propagate babasaheb's writings and speeches in various ways. And last 13 years, there is one program that we have been constantly running, which is called Weekly Vihara. During this event, we all meet on a Sunday at 10 a.m. online, and we propagate Buddha's teachings. Plus, we also propagate babasaheb's teachings during that event. And we have been running that continuously for last 13 years. So that's a really one of the biggest achievements of AANA. Last but not least, I want to thank you all so much for coming and joining. Each one of you I know has a seed to make this world a better place, and we value all of your opinion, and we would like to, work together again to make sure we leave this world a better place than what we came into. Thank you all so much for coming.
Thank you, Smita. Everyone, please let's give another round of applause. Now, I'd like to move into a different segment, separate from the panel discussion. I'd really recognize, and I'd like to have the privilege to introduce many distinguished guests for our program today. I'd like to welcome to the stage Representative Ramji as well as Mahesh Wasnik to present the annihilation of caste as well as the flower bouquet. So please. Everyone, please join me in welcoming Ramji Puri. He's a formal financial consultant with experience in the Obama administration, who's now a member of the Michigan House of Representatives representing the 24th District. He holds degrees in economics and business administration, and he resides in Canton, Michigan, with his wife and 3 children. Rajiv is also recognized for his dedication to serving his community and is being honored with the flower bouquet. Representatives, are there any thoughts you would like to share?
तिथे ठेवायचं ते एसीसाठी एसीच्या ह्याच्यात एसी एसीच्या पॅकमध्ये ओके
Good morning, everyone. My name is Rajiv Puri. As I mentioned, I'm a Michigan State representative here, living in Canton Township. I want to thank Canton Township and AANA for putting on such a wonderful event this morning. It's a beautiful spring morning. I heard you can thank your local state representative for the beautiful weather. But I am honored to join all of you today as we commemorate this towering figure of Dr. Bhimrao Ramji Ambedkar. We're not only celebrating his remarkable legacy, but we're also reflecting on the enduring relevance of his ideals in our own context here in Michigan and across the globe. Dr. Ambedkar's life was marked by an unwavering commitment to justice, equality, and human dignity. Everyone here knows of his work as an architect of the Constitution. He championed social justice, advocating for the rights of marginalized community, and laying the foundation for a more inclusive society. Those values are increasingly important, even today, in 2024, right here in Michigan. He was a man ahead of his time. The answer lies in the universal principles that he led, principles that resonate deeply with the struggles and aspirations of people everywhere, including right here in our own state. Dr. Ambedkar's tireless efforts to combat discrimination and promote equality serve as a beacon of inspiration for all those who serve to build a more just and equitable society. Those very same values resonate with me. They are a large reason that I ran for office and continue continued my shared goal with Dr. Ambedkar to pursue a society in which every Michigander has the opportunity to reach their potential, regardless of their background, their beliefs, or their zip code. Dr. Ambedkar's vision of social justice extends beyond the borders of any one nation. It speaks to the universal struggle for dignity and rights that transcends geographical boundaries and cultural differences. In a world that is increasingly interconnected, his message serves as a powerful reminder of our shared humanity and our collective responsibility to stand up for what is right. We shall not only pay tribute to his extraordinary life, but also reaffirm our commitment to timeless ideals for which he stood. Let us rededicate ourselves to the pursuit of justice, equality, and dignity for every single person, here in Michigan, across America, and around the world. Again, there's a lot of commonality in what I'm saying and what has already been discussed, which reaffirms the goals and the needs for us to focus on these efforts. Thank you for having me, and thank you for this honor.
Next, I would like to welcome to the stage Trustee Tanya Kamble, as well as Mr. Sunny Kulkarni, to present the annihilation of caste as well as a flower bouquet. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce Tanya Kamble, a familiar face in our community. Tanya Kamble is a longtime resident of Canton and is running for Canton Township Trustee, reflecting her deep attachment to the community. With a background in business and finance, Tanya's diverse experience as a mother and student have shaped her perspective and dedication to serving Canton. Her commitment to township is evident through her active involvement and desire to contribute positively to its growth and development. Trustee Kamble, do you have any statements?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for this invitation and welcome to the Canton Township community. We love to see a lot of people here in our Summit Banquet Hall to commemorate the birthday of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. I would like to thank the Ambedkar Association of North America for inviting me to celebrate Ambedkar Jayanti, or the 133rd birthday celebration of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. India, Dr. Ambedkar has always been part of our history books as the architect of the Republic's principal document, the Indian Constitution. But as we get to know him a bit more, we know that he was the biggest advocate and voice for the people who had no voice. Dr. Ambedkar wasn't just a scholar or a politician, he was a revolutionary. Born into an ostracized community, he refused to be confined by his limitations. Through sheer brilliance and an unwavering spirit, he became a lawyer, an economist, and a social reformer. His greatest fight was for equality. He championed the cause of the people that were the most discriminated in the society, and his weapon of choice was education. He understood that knowledge empowers. He fought for access to education for all, particularly the people of the marginalized communities. He believed education was the key to breaking the cycle of poverty and social exclusion. His most enduring legacy, of course, was the Indian Constitution. As the chairman of the drafting committee, Dr. Ambedkar played a pivotal role in shaping the document that defines modern India. He ensured it enshrined fundamental rights, including the abolition of untouchability. The Constitution became the bedrock of a nation committed to the equality for all. Dr. Ambedkar was not just a historical figure. He was a beacon of hope, a champion of equality, and a visionary leader whose impact continues to resonate not only across the length and breadth of India, but also across the world. Dr. Ambedkar was not content to merely critiqued the status quo. He was determined to change it. As a social reformer, he worked tirelessly to uplift the downtrodden and empower the marginalized. Through his advocacy and his relentless pursuit of social and political reform, he became the voice of the voiceless, the champion of the oppressed. Now, how can Dr. Ambedkar's teaching resonate with us here in Michigan? Michigan, like many other places, is a home for a diverse community of various faiths, roots, many of whom have faced their own struggles with discrimination and marginalization. Dr. Ambedkar's teaching of resilience, courage, and social justice can serve as a guiding light to us as we navigate the challenges of assimilation and integration into the American society. As a part of the Canton Township Board, we have one of the main tenets of our strategies has been to make Canton Township a welcoming community where we welcome everyone in our community irrespective of where they come from, of what their roots are. And we have also passed a human rights ordinance which makes a discrimination punishable offense. So we are very proud of passing the human rights ordinance in this community. I just want to also mention that his emphasis on education as a means of empowerment is particularly relevant to a place like Michigan, where access to quality education can often determine one's future prospects. And I also wanted to thank Rep. Ranjiv Puri, who has worked on, mainly for education at the state level. He's working on passing one of the biggest education budgets in the state of Michigan, so that education can work for every child in the state of Michigan. So let's give him a round of applause. Furthermore, Ambedkar's unwavering commitment to equality and social justice can inspire us to become active participants in our local communities, advocating for the rights of the marginalized and working towards a more inclusive society for all. In conclusion, Dr. Ambedkar's life is a testament to the power of courage, conviction, and compassion. His legacy will continue to inspire and guide us in our ongoing quest for a more just and equitable world, both in India and also here in the United States of America. Finally, I want to congratulate AANA for continuing to work on the tenets of Dr. Ambedkar's legacy of fighting inequity by the principles of educate, agitate, and organize. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anya Ganguly. Thank you as well for making Canton a better place for everyone here. One more guest I'd like to welcome to the stage is Cultural Commissioner President Kevin Ryan, as well as Kamble to present the animation and casting of Flower Bouquet. Kevin Ryan serves as the Community Program Director for the Partnership of the Arts and Humanities, as well as the Chair of Canton Commission for Culture, Arts, and Heritage. A resident of Canton Township, Kevin holds a BA in Music Performance from Albion College and Masters in Music and Orchestral Conducting from Ambedkar College, New York. Besides his art-focused work in the Partnership of the Arts and Canton Leisure Services, Kevin is currently pursuing studies of art history through Oxford University and enjoys teaching piano and music theory to many young residents in the Canton area. Ryan, is there anything?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for including me in today's joyous celebration. My name is Kevin Ryan, and I serve as the chair of the Canton Commission for Culture, Arts, and Heritage, as well as the Community Program Director for the Partnership for the Arts and Humanities. And on behalf of Canton Township, I'd like to welcome everyone to this joyous occasion as we celebrate the life and legacy of Dr. Ambedkar. Canton is proud to partner with the Ambedkar Association of North America to embrace diversity and unity as we come together to reflect on Dr. Ambedkar's profound impact on From his tireless efforts in social reform to his instrumental role in drafting the Indian Constitution, his legacy continues to inspire generations worldwide. To this day, his amazing leadership continues to be a driving force of motivation for political parties, workers' unions, and human rights activists. His work and advocacy for socio-political reform can be felt not only in modern India, but also around the world. This visionary leader champions equality, justice, and empowerment for all, and it is a great honor to see everyone here today to celebrate Dr. Ambedkar's ideals of inclusivity and social progress. Throughout the year, the Canton Township Commission for Culture, Arts, and Heritage celebrates and showcases numerous diverse cultural offerings, raises awareness of arts accessibility, and strives to instill an appreciation of local arts organizations, all while promoting arts and cultural resources in and around the Canton community. Some of our annual programs that we are proud to present include Canton's international festivals, the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Community Celebration, the Canton Annual Fine Arts Exhibition, as well as Canton's Diwali Festival of Lights, just to name a few. To learn more about any of our events here in Canton Township, we encourage you to visit our website, cantonfund.org, and visit the special page for the Commission for Cultural Arts and Heritage. It is important in many ways for all of us on occasions like today to come together and honor the diversity of our backgrounds, the diversity of our beliefs, and to welcome visitors from neighboring communities and around the state into our great community. Canton Township is so proud to have been selected as the host site for today's celebration, and one of the presenting partners for this incredible day celebrating the life of an amazing man. Once again, I would like to thank all of you for joining us today. On behalf of Canton Township, I would like to extend our warmest wishes and gratitude to all who are participating in Dr. Ambedkar's anniversary celebration, which honors a man who remains a beacon of inspiration to all of us to continue efforts in creating a more inclusive and equitable society for future generations to come. Thank you once again.
Dr. Ambedkar has a brilliant mind. He attended school when untouchables were not allowed to study and earned 9 degrees in economics and political science. Today, he is considered a symbol of education while his work is being studied and appreciated by like-minded people. He continues to inspire educators.
Since babasaheb Ambedkar is known as a symbol of knowledge, what better way to pay tribute and celebrate his legacy than to have an intellectual discussion? Today, we have distinguished faculty members who have studied Dr. Ambedkar's work and are guiding their students. I would like to bring up to the stage Dana Sakloti to introduce and moderate the panel discussion that we will have soon.
Mr. Kanaji Sakpal is an IT program manager working in the IT industry for the past 40 years and is currently working with the company Detroit Manufacturing Systems. He completed his education in physics with a specialization in electronics and financial management from the Bombay University in India. He's been a resident of Michigan for the last 20 years, living with his wife and 3 children. He has contributed to several social organizations and performed charity work to uplift the poor community. He has also been an active member of AANA for the last 18 years. Now please join me in welcoming Mr. Sakpal, sir.
Good evening, everybody. So thank you for the honorable guests who are here today and sharing their thoughts on Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar. Thank you. Please take your seats. So, we have seen from the different part of the community, people talking about Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, speeches, the influence Dr. Babasaheb had by writing his speeches. I think in this room, nobody has seen Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, but he is living with us. So this is a way actually how people live on the life. So through their thoughts, the speeches, the books, the novels, the writing they have, all of them. So after hearing from the various leaders and all these things, so here actually we are forming a panel discussion. In this panel discussion, the eminent officers from the various universities have joined us, and I'd like to invite the honorable professors who are here. So first I'll invite John Quiney. Dr. John Quiney is professor in the Michigan State of University for religious studies. So Dr. Quine, Professor Quine is from the Michigan State University. He has for the religious studies, and he has studied Hinduism, Buddhism. Not only he has studied, but actually he has visited various parts of India, and he has shared his thoughts, his studies and he has written various books. The Equality and Bhakti, Transnational Buddhism. The today's topic is Transnational Buddhism and Ambedkarite migration. So what we are doing is actually after the speech of each of the professors, we'll have a question answer session after that thing. So Professor Quine will share his thoughts, whatever the topics which he has said about how the Buddhism can help in the daily life and all the others. Please welcome John Quine.
Can you put the speaker up? The microphone. On the yeah, microphone. Little up. Little up. Because he's top.
So my computer here is getting set up, and I'd like to say it's an honor to have been invited to join you here today. I would like to congratulate the organizers for putting on such a fantastic event, and for everyone who was involved in the city of Canton for coming out. This is really a wonderful facility. So it's a real pleasure and an honor to be able to be with you to share this special event and also to share some of the research that I'm working on. I appreciate the introduction. As was mentioned, my name is John Quiney. I teach at Michigan State University. I'm an associate professor. I have a rather strange name. It's a German name that got half anglicized when my ancestors came to the U.S. But when I went to Nagpur a couple of years ago, I discovered that actually there's a very easy way for Indians to remember my last name, or at least people who have some background with the language. And I was flying into the airport and somebody picked me up, the taxi driver, and so we were going to the place where I was going to stay overnight. And he said, "Tuntanao, kaya." So he said, "Tuntanao," and I said, "No, John Coy." And he turned around, which was a little uncomfortable because he was driving on the street. He turned around and looked at me, and he said, "Tumi koi nahi hai. You're koi nahi. You're nothing. You're nobody." And I said, "Yeah, yes I am." Which, if you're Buddhist, that's a good thing to be. No self. So I'm John koi nahi. So I would like to talk a little bit about an ongoing research project that I've been doing since about 2014. I've been visiting India since 1995. When I was a college student, I studied abroad, lived in the city of Pune for 6 months, and that's where I started Marathi. And the person who actually set up the study abroad program was, one of the people was Eleanor Elliott, who you might know. She was deeply involved in the study of Dr. Ambedkar and his, and so she was one of my teachers. I had a lot of contact with her, and already from my college period onwards, I was very aware of Dr. Ambedkar, his movement for assertion for rights and Dalit people and against untouchability and things like that. In 2014, I started going more often to Nagpur, and that now has become sort of base. So I've lived in India for a total of around 4 years altogether. Through the course of maybe 12 to 15 trips, I've kind of lost track. In September to continue this research, and what I'm especially interested in is how Dr. Ambedkar's idea of Buddhism and how Ambedkarite Buddhists are increasingly moving around the world and being understood by people who either don't have any background, don't have any Buddhist or Indian background at all. So this is very much a process of translation, of cross-cultural contact, and as I've been interviewing Ambedkarites around the world for the last decade, in Japan, Taiwan, India, Dubai, Scotland, England, Europe, and America, as I've been doing these interviews, obviously people's views have been changing. They have to, inevitably. And so I'm trying to do that. And so what I want to do is a little bit of research, which is only possible because people were so willing to talk with me and share with me things going on. So I ought to really say, thank you for allowing me to be in your communities and for being willing to share your lives with me, because this is formative for me in the research that I'm doing, and it's important for me to reflect this back to you, because I don't want to be the kind of scholar who just takes this data, goes and writes a book, and then never has any contact again. I've greatly appreciated the social contacts that I've had, especially with Javan and Chatak, and these contacts have been very important for me in my own life. So this is a deeply personal kind of research. What I'm looking at here, do we have this? Oh yeah, good. What I'm looking at here is transnational Buddhism, labor migration and social upliftment, recognizing that the word Buddhism, this means a lot of different things in different contexts. And I'm especially keen on trying to understand how it transforms as people move around the world. So I'll say a few things. Two major places where I'm viewing this transnational connections, where the idea of Buddhism gets to be negotiated, is one is in within India, in Nagpur and the area around it. Nagpur has been a transnational portal, meaning that a lot of people who are from Buddhist backgrounds come into Nagpur and interact, and a lot of people who are from the area go out of Nagpur and settle in other places. And so there's this transnational contact that comes up. There have been a number of different, like non-Indian Buddhists very active in Nagpur, Sri Lankan, Thai, British, especially Tibetan. This is historically very important, but especially since the 1990s, a group that I've been groups that have very Japanese and Taiwanese Buddhists. And I'm especially interested in this partially because my wife is Taiwanese and I spend a lot of time in Taiwan. And so how Taiwanese people and Indian people understand each other, or Japanese people and Indian people understand each other, you can kind of imagine is a challenge. So I've been interested to see how that plays out. And then there's obviously migration beyond India. Many of you have a lot of experience with that. And that sets up a different case of thinking about what Buddhism means in different contexts. So I was anticipating sharing only a little bit of my research. I understand that now there's a bit more time because in our schedule here there were a couple of speakers who did not. And so I will try to be, somebody give me a flag if there's, like I'm going on too long. I'm a professor, it's a little bit easy for me to kind of go on and on. So I apologize for that in advance if that's the case. But in Nagpur, there are a number of building projects, and I'll just overview some photos here, and I hope that people can sort of see behind me and see some of these photos. The Nagarjuna Buddhist Training Center, now called the Nagarjuna Training Institute, Dragon Palace Temple, Michgian Vihara, and the Munster excavation. Do you mind, could you show your hands if you've been to any of these places? That's great, so nearly half the people's hands have gone up. This is fantastic. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here, but I do want to just point out, in addition to this, also coming through these contacts has been educational collaborations with Taiwanese Buddhists, I'll say a bit about that, and then a number of ways in which Japanese Buddhists have made links with Ambedkarites, both in Nagpur and in Japan. So this is a map of some of the sites that are in Nagpur, just to give you a sense. We've got Dikshapumi, Nagaloka in sort of the northeastern side of Nagpur, Kamble close by just further down the road, and then Mansur and Ramji. So the Nagaloka Buddhist Training Center, the big thing that's at the center of the campus is a walking Buddha. And this walking Buddha was donated by donors from Taiwan. The sculptor, is from Taiwan. Thank you, that helps a lot. So the sculptor is also from Taiwan. This project was close to $500,000 US, donated from Taiwan, shipped to Nagpur, and then assembled on the campus of Nagaloka. And one thing that struck me, maybe your perceptions have been different, but one thing that struck me is that now Nagpur has made this actually a tourist site. They advertise, if you're coming to Nagpur, go see the walking Buddha statue at Nagaloka, which is really rather remarkable. That not only is it a Buddhist site, but also a Buddhist site that has Taiwanese roots. So, or at least the statue does, and many of the donations also come from Taiwan. So there's a close Taiwanese contact there. Another site, this is near Mansur, an excavation site of a stupa. We also have then a large dedication, also only in Japanese with no translation. You have some Hindi with no translation, and then a list of local donors in English. And so the thing that's interesting to me is you have then different groups of people coming into these spaces, understanding them in their own way, and not necessarily translating them to each other. So this is one thing that's motivated some of the Japanese Buddhists, not all, but some, has been a particular kind of Japanese Buddhism from a Michgian background, where the main goal of Buddhist practice is to recite the saying Namu Myoho Renge Kyo, reference to the Lotus Sutra, a particular book of Mahayana Buddhism. And so we see, like here, this is called the Gohon Zone. This comes from a Nichiren Buddhist background. It's established there, also at the Dragon Palace Temple. This is a way of spreading that kind of Buddhism in invocation to the name of the book itself. Then in Ramji, there is a large meditation hall and a number of sites that are related to the philosopher Nagarjuna, a great Indian Buddhist philosopher from around the 2nd century, who for Mahayana Buddhists in Eastern Asia is extremely important. And here too, we find a number of things that are written only in Japanese with no translation. So I don't read Japanese yet. I'm working on it, but I don't read it yet. I do have who have helped me understand what this says. It's rather about how the Japanese Buddhists are understanding this site on their terms and saying, here's us as Japanese Buddhists making our connection to this garden, who's our Buddhist patriarchs. And this is rather different than Dr. Ambedkar and a lot of Buddhists in the area understand this. So this is very interesting to watch. This photo, I've shown this to Buddhist scholars around the world. A lot of them find this very interesting. So there's a lot of you here. I'm not sure if this will work, but dare I ask for any input? What do you see here in this photo? This is the 2nd century Indian philosopher, Nagarjuna. Anything stands out to you?
The sword.
Yes, you've got this sword. I don't recall any Ambedkarite imagery. Dr. Ambedkar is never holding a sword. But here you've got Nagarjuna holding a sword. What else stands out to you?
The other thing.
Sorry? This part here, the trident? Yes. Oh, well, so this is actually the hilt of the sword, which has a very sort of peculiar thing. But you say the trident, it looks like a Shiva's trident. It looks like that. Mm-hmm. It probably relates to more Tibetan Buddhism and like a vajra, sort of a thunderbolt. Other things that stand out? One more thing, then move on. You can see I'm a professor. Students to talk. You know. I'm sorry? Yes. So you've got a rosary here. How many Buddhists do you know of Ambedkarite background have rosaries?
No.
At least I've never met it. There's probably some out there somewhere, but I've never met it. So here again, this is Ramji. This is like just outside Nagpur. This is a Japanese Ambedkarite collaboration, and we're seeing different forms of Buddhism kind of come through here. Also, this doesn't exactly look East Asian or Japanese either. This is sort of a transnational creation, which is fascinating. These sort of things that come together when backgrounds meet, I think is really interesting. So the Dragon Palace Temple in Kamble, their signboards are very clear that it's a collaboration between 2 Buddhist women, notably. So Noriko Ogawa, who was a philanthropist, had a business for providing especially healthy beds that were restorative to people's backs. She and Sulek Kumhare, a local politician, got together to put this building together. There in the main temple and the main shrine is a very large wooden statue of Buddha, and looks very Michgian style, which is, that's where the group comes from. And so this Dragon Palace Temple is part of a group in Japan. It's actually one of their international temples. The Michgian Order has a number of international temples. Usually they send Japanese priests to be at these temples to lead them, but in this case, they actually just have Sulek Kumhare be there. So some interesting transnational Buddhist connection. This is a Zen temple, a Chan temple in central Taiwan. So there have been a number of Taiwanese donors who have brought students from Nagaloka to study in Taiwan. And so initially they brought them to this center, thinking that these Ambedkarite students would come and they were, the students were maybe interested in becoming Buddhist monks and nuns. Can I ask, how many of you know people of Ambedkarite background who have become monks and nuns? So, 3, 4 of you, 5 of you. In a group of, how many? Yes, maybe 200? So, people do, but it's not a very common route. Is it safe to say that? It's not a very common route for Ambedkarites to go. But for Taiwanese, that's a very common thing to think. If you're going to study Buddhism, you're going to become a monk and nun. So the students who came here had a little bit of a hard time. They didn't like Taiwanese food, which I understand where they're coming from, but Taiwanese food is great. So they didn't like Taiwanese food so much. They were a little unhappy with getting up at 4 in the morning and going to meditate. They thought they were going to be students. So there was a sort of a mismatch. So eventually, the scholarships then got transferred to a school in northwestern Taiwan, which is a Buddhist university. So this woman down here is a Buddhist nun who's a very social activist-oriented person. And so since about 2018, there have been about 10 Ambedkarite students who have come and studied at this school. So a couple of years ago, I was there meeting with these three out of about 10 who I also met with. This was just a photo. This was still coming out of COVID time, so we were obviously wearing masks and things. And so it's been an interesting in Mandarin Chinese. Their classes are in Mandarin. And then studying to be social workers, learning about Buddhism and other things. So there's a number of challenges to these collaborations. There are linguistic, cultural, socioeconomic, and then sectarian, of people who are trying to make connections, who are sympathetic and want to make connections, but there's a lot going that are making that a challenge. There's also a lot of translating of unfamiliar. I found, rather interestingly, that both in and around Nagpur and in Japan and Taiwan, a lot of people don't really have much background knowledge at all about who they're dealing with. And so they talk about Buddhism. Buddhism brings them together, but they don't really have a strong grasp of where people are coming from. And it's interesting to watch how that plays out. There's also then the challenge of making new connections, either through the idea, the notion of Buddhism and a shared Buddhist identity, or through something like the struggle, like here in North America, caste and anti-racism, things making those come into contact. There's also the migration beyond India that's determined by what sort of access to employment people have, whether they're going to be migrating just transitorily, meaning they'll be there for just a brief time, or they've been settled there permanently, and then the experience of growing up in diaspora, where simply being of Indian ethnicity is already a minority, and the sort of caste or Ambedkarite status, that's rather different. I've been studying this around the world, and so talking with Ambedkarites in the UK, especially it's an interesting difference between Punjabi who the Punjabis coming to the UK in the 1950s to help build the UK after World War II, settling there. Many of them actually converted to Buddhism in the UK and then reflected that back to Punjab. That's very different than the Maharashtrians who showed up from about the 1990s, a global map here behind us. But it was trying to track who is where at what times. And so in fact, I'd be very happy to talk with more of you if you have further information about how people have moved around the world. So I'll just conclude by pointing out, as I'm looking at the word Buddhism, that this is something that is something of a unique, but a real. For example, going to Japan, they very often don't talk with Japanese Buddhists about Buddhism. Japanese Buddhists don't themselves talk about Buddhism all that much. So Buddhism plays a role, but it's not necessarily on the level of having lots of dialogue and trying to understand each other. It's doing something there. It's doing something real, but it's not a deep conversation, at least not yet. So I think of this as more of like a discursive reference point. People use the word Buddhism, they'll have an image of the Buddha, and that's something that they share, but the conversation doesn't go too much beyond that. And sometimes I think that's strategically so that people don't lift up their differences and actually have trouble working together. So establishing Ambedkarite diasporas, there's a number of things here related to Ambedkarite temples. Obviously, if you're in India, especially Maharashtra, you have lots of viharas around that are Ambedkarite. Everybody knows what happens there. In diaspora communities, aside from the UK, I think there's 3 or 4 temples that are more Ambedkarite in the UK. Aside from that, Ambedkarites are very often going to temples that were set up by Buddhists from other places, and then negotiating what happens with the role of Ambedkar. That can be kind of tricky, as you probably know. Also, what is the role of monks and nuns for Ambedkarite Buddhists? You know from in Maharashtra, the Tri Ratna, TBM, is very important, very widespread. They don't view monks and nuns in quite the same way. And so there is going to be, you know also Dr. Ambedkar had a lot to say about monks and nuns being social workers, rather than more sort of traditional style monks and nuns. So that is going to be something that's going to be worked out. And then what is Ambedkar and Buddhism going to mean for people who grow up outside of India? It was very interesting to talk third generation Ambedkarite Buddhists in the UK. So these are people like not only their parents grew up, or their grandparents came, the parents grew up, and then they are college students, it's third generation. Buddhism in the UK looks very, very different. You can't take for granted for the community practicing Buddhism because the community is not around. And the idea in the UK is that the religious participation is declining. And so Ambedkarite or Buddhist identity means something really rather different there. So lots of different challenges and different contexts. I would just finish with an illustration from Japan, 2018. There was the fourth Dr. Ambedkar International Conference. This was in Fukuoka, Japan, far western Japan. Right now, the fifth conference is happening actually. I recorded a video because I'm going to be here and I can't be kind of talking to them. So I recorded a video that's being played right now in Malaysia right now with this group. So here, they thought within Japan to bring together not only Ambedkarites, but also Burakumin, so the so-called Japanese untouchables. So, you know, there's a history, or maybe some of you know it, there's a history in Japan of a group being stigmatized, being forced to live in separate towns, who especially did things with slaughtering animals or cleaning waste and things like that. And this has a history in Japan. So they thought to bring together these two groups for this convention. And I was speaking with one of the Ambedkarites who was involved in this, and he had come up with this image that he wanted to portray as holding together the Ambedkarites and the Burakumin. And so here you have Dr. Ambedkar, here you have Jichiro Matsumoto of Burakumin. And he had this idea, we can make a poster with the Buddha at the center, holding out his hands over Dr. Ambedkar and over Mr. Matsumoto. And he thought that was great. It seems it symbolizes a nice thing. The Buddha holds them together. The Buraku people objected. They said they didn't want this. They were very much Buddhist, but they said in Japan, if they put the image of the Buddha up there, what it's going to symbolize is that somehow they're very pious Buddhists, and they're very religious, and that's not the way that this convention was going to go. They didn't want to signal that somehow they were pious Buddhists. What the symbol of the Buddha means for Ambedkarites and for the Burakumin are very, very different in these different contexts. And so that's led me to come up with a different theory of how this word Buddhism is working. It's not related to sect of different kinds of Buddhists. It's related more to what does Buddhism signify? What does it mean in different places? In the US, very often Buddhism means well-being and breathing exercises and some meditation. It doesn't usually mean social justice. In Nagpur and in India, obviously it does mean social justice. In Japan, it means something different. In Thailand, it means something different. And as Ambedkarites move around the world, they are constantly then negotiating these different ways of talking about Buddhism and coming to gradually also change their own ideas as they communicate with other people and inform other people about who Dr. Ambedkar is and what his contribution is. So I'll end with that. Thanks for listening to me ramble for a while. And thank you again for your welcome here and for all of your participation when I've been asking questions. If anybody would like to talk further in the future, I'd be very happy to.
Thank you, Dr. This online in-depth study I have seen, heard for many years actually. Speaking Buddhism, this actually shows and efforts, a lot of study, so many years he has done. Thank you for that. So we'll have a question and answer session after this, but let me help you invite Dr. Ramalingam. He's a professor of psychology. He has done PhD from the University of Pittsburgh. Is engaged in research concern nurturing and carving out compassionate workplace that treats workers with dignity. He has published a lot of journals, articles in more than 50 journals, and also co-edited the books, various books also. So today's topic is Dr. Ambedkar's legacy in social justice and family. Let me invite Dr. Ram Mahalingam. So,
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for inviting me to be here. It's been a pleasure to see so many people on a Saturday morning and celebrating babasaheb's birthday. What I'm going to do is a lot of the previous speakers have talked about how we're going to walk on Ambedkar's, babasaheb's ideas, how we're going to walk the path. So I'm a psychologist, so I'm really interested in how we're going to do this. He talks about compassion. My point is how to cultivate compassion, what happens to us when you try to do this. So I'm going to talk about a little bit of the research on psychological research on these ideas and how to use it for social justice. That's the other thing, right? Buddhism, mindfulness talks about being mindful, but also how to take it to the next step. So how we can address this question. That's what I'm going to present. I've been doing this research for 15 years. I'm a psychologist. I'm a professor of psychology at the University of Michigan. I'm also directing the Center for Leadership, Modern Leadership Institute. I'm also a first generation. I'm here because of the reservation system, otherwise I would not have been here. So it's also important for me to acknowledge, signal that. So both my parents didn't finish high school. So I'm here from South India, from Tamil Nadu. So influenced by Periyar, then Ambedkar and Buddha and other thinkers have changed how I work, how I do my research. So it's a great pleasure to see so many people here, and I'm going to really walk you through how to think about mindfulness in our everyday life and how to use it for social justice the way Babasaheb wanted to think about, wants us to think about and practice it. Okay, what is mindfulness? Right? The biggest thing is life is transient, so we have to live fully. It's very easy to say, right? So you're at this moment, but you're what's going to happen, which is going to be here in an hour, they're not coming here. So many things worrying about the future, or we are worrying about the past, what happened before, and how to be in the present. It's a quite popular topic. If you really Google mindfulness, you will see so many responses. So how people study mindfulness? So mindfulness has been studied about how to be in the present. How to be in the present, and also how to cultivate mindfulness, the way you actually cultivate by practicing meditation or contemplative art, depending on which culture you are, you can do that. So it's really different ways of cultivating mindfulness. So typically mindfulness is cultivated. You can do so you can actually do meditation, different kind of meditation. You can also cultivate an awareness, what we call the non-judgmental awareness. How to be, how to not to judge. easy to say these things, really practice is the difficult. So it typically takes about 8 weeks to retreat or learn these things. It takes about 8 weeks to show any differences. The more you practice mindfulness, it's also like improve your resilience, positive emotions, you have a better body and self-esteem. You also lower depression and self-stress, traumatic stress, all those things. So we've been doing a lot of this research, about 20 years of psychological research, clinical research, and mindfulness talks about it. So mindfulness also improves attention. The more you become mindful, you're also more likely to pay attention, both short-term memory, long-term memory, and also improve emotional regulation. You're more likely to be more balanced, not the extreme emotions, or you're sad or happy. So how to really be equitable and how to be equitable really improves your mental health and physical health. And it also improves parent-child relationship. The more you become mindful, we also call the mindful parenting training. More than a lot of parents. So how to really accept children can push all over buttons. How do we be kind to them? We may not be perfect as we are. And how to accept children who are not perfect. Right? So that's very important. So we want our children, we want to give them everything. That means they have to do everything which we didn't have. But it's not going to be always easy the way we think about it. How to accept our children who they are, how they are, for who they are, and how to think about them. It also improves your intergroup relations, how you talk to other people. So mindfulness also has a long tradition, but Ambedkar is, babasaheb is probably pioneer in what we call the engaged Buddhism. So right? So most of the Buddhist means in the US, like John said, it's meditation. When you do meditation, you go inward. It's good for you. Then you feel good. You go home and take a nap. That's it. Right? So what Dr. Ambedkar said was, how do you really use it for social change? We talked about it, but after the conversion, he didn't live for a longer time. So really to realize certain things. So the kind of work has been followed by other people like Canton, Sam Salzberg in the US, Larry Yang, by Bush. These are some of the people really following some of the ideas, how to take mindfulness and Buddhist ideas, not only for personal change, and how to use it to change the society. That means you need to think about not just meditation, a lot of other things we need to think about it. So I've been developing a framework to really think about social justice along with mindfulness. Right? So what are the things? So I really identified 7 things we need to have to really think about mindfulness with the social justice framework. So a lot of these people use mindfulness to think about social disparities, health disparities, racism, sexism, all kind of different identity-based discrimination, inequalities. So they use these following techniques. Different techniques are useful because it really helps you to settle the mind. For example, your breath meditation. Any of you have done any of these meditations and practice? Some of you. Very good. So you really remember that. So breath meditation is one of the core of most of that would be what we call the foundation meditation. Then emotion meditation, how to focus on your emotions, right? So whenever you are emotional, your emotions will control us. So emotion meditation is how to label your emotions as you are experiencing it. So more you can label it, then you create a distance between yourself and your emotion. That means you become more like a traveler with your emotions, right? So instead of being upset, you actually notice that I'm actually upset right now. The moment I notice that, for example, if my daughter sends a very angry text to me, my immediate reaction is I'm going to text her right away. But I take a moment to really think about my own emotion, take a distance between me and my emotion. That also helps me to regulate my emotion better. That means I have a better sense of talking with her, discussing with her with open mind. Body scanning really helps us to really understand how the body is experiencing the present moment. And loving kindness meditation, which is probably one of the most unique contribution of Buddhism to meditative tradition, at least I think the religious scholar can attest to it. I'm a psychologist, I could be wrong, but he can attest. So this is the single most contribution of Buddhism to a particular kind of meditation where we actually feel compassion for everyone us, other people in our lives. And the most difficult step is, even people who hurt us, how to be kind to them. That is the most difficult form of the, what you call the metta meditation. How to really send kindness to people whom we don't like very much. That's really the ultimate test. And how to really cultivate that. How to really think about lovingly with compassion for all living beings. Right? So this is a really important part of the eating meditation, which is the easiest one to do, because Thich Nhat Hanh really developed it into a very more dedicated meditation where you eat slowly, enjoy the food. So you also think of how you are enjoying the food. Really, what we found was eating meditation, mindfulness-based eating meditation is one of the most effective intervention for eating disorders in psychology. People who have eating disorders, the more they eat slowly and enjoy the food, they are more likely to eat less. So we all like to, when we try to lose weight, we all go through different diets, right? We do this, no carb, low carb, all kind of things, right? But what is most effective is eat mindfully, eat slowly, you enjoy your food. That's what will be helpful to you. So what it actually does is, most of the time when you do the meditation, really help you to connect yourself more. I'm more in the present, I'm more likely to pay attention to my emotions. Then the next step is how to use it to connect to other people, how to see the other people as human beings. Most of the time we come from a caste-based society where we like what babasaheb calls the graded inequality. Every caste is either below us or above us. That means we are not going to see anyone as equal. So that's an important part. How to really have an intersectional awareness that everybody is equal to us and how to recognize that. Then how to use it to connect to nature, sustainability. Generation is talking about sustainability. So these three kinds of awareness will help us to connect your own emotions, which is important, first part. Second step is how to connect to other people and how to connect to nature. How the practices help us to cultivate this. So we move towards a sustainable future where we treat people with respect and we also promote equality. So these are the 7 features I talked about, right? First one is compassion, right? How to be compassionate to people? Compassion to yourself first, because we are not perfect. Most of the time we don't have self-compassion. A lot of us, we are very busy, we don't take care of ourselves. So self-compassion is very important. Then compassion towards other people. The second thing is the most interesting and difficult part, which is also one of the unique contributions of Buddhism for our understanding of the world, sympathetic joy, which we normally don't hear much. Right? Sympathetic joy is how to feel happy for other people's happiness. Right? If something good happens to other person, what is our typical reaction? If one of my colleagues win an award, so what do you think will be my reaction, immediate reaction? Anybody? I mean, John can answer the question right away. Jealousy, yes, correct. So, jealousy is the important part. This word in Pali is mudita. Mudita means sympathetic joy. In fact, no other Indian language can translate the word. How to feel happy for other people's happiness. So my immediate reaction is jealousy. In Tamil, I can beautifully use 4 different shades of jealousy. Everybody will understand. There are so many words we have for jealousy, the opposite of sympathetic joy. So, sympathetic joy is the most difficult part to cultivate. Compassion comes to us naturally. For example, if I am programming, many programmers are here, if I am programming a robot, what robot does? So, if somebody feels sad around you, be compassionate. Robot will understand, yes, I can do that. Then I can also tell the robot, if somebody is happy, also rejoice with that. Be happy for them. Robot will perfectly do it. But human beings are complex. What we found was, people who are very high on compassion, not necessarily very high on sympathetic joy. That means they are not correlationally, they are not correlated very strongly. So we have to consciously cultivate sympathetic joy, which is one of the Brahma Viharas. 4 Brahma Viharas: compassion, sympathetic joy, equanimity, and loving kindness. Correct? Okay, that's right. So, what is important is this is probably the most difficult thing to cultivate. So we have to really feel happy for other people's happiness. Only 3 groups of people are high on sympathetic joy. If something good happens to you, what do? Some happy news, you got into Harvard or you got into University of Michigan. Okay, we can say that. So what are the things you're going to do first? You text your friend, closest friend, not everybody, closest friend, then you post in Facebook or Instagram. Oh, I got it. So we have genuinely few people care for us. Parents are very genuinely score high on sympathetic joy, right? They really want their children to be happy. The second group is teachers and coaches. Teachers are happy for other people's happiness. The third group is the most interesting group because they are very genuinely happy when you eat their food and feel happy about it. So I really help my students when you think about sympathetic joy, think of a cook. How to be like a cook. We want to make happiness around us. How to cultivate this. This is the most difficult part in these 7 features. I have separate exercises for each of how to cultivate this. So my course, I'm just designing a course online. It will be available by July 1st. We are going to release it. You can really learn about this, how to cultivate them, how to practice it in real life. Third one is intersectional awareness. This is the social justice part. To really become aware of my own privileges. I'm a professor, I have a PhD, I'm a male, all of them have certain privileges. And how to use it to really help others instead of just making myself, greedy and all the other stuff. How to think about awareness, how to think about privileges, how to use it to connect to other people so that we actually see people, how to see my identity more complex, it's woven to different things, and how to use it to connect people who are trying to change the place. Fourth one is negative capability, which is the difficult one because we all think we are perfect, but we are not perfect. If you ask our children, they will tell us the list of things wrong with us. So our imperfections, how to really live with our imperfections so that we can accept our imperfections. There are times I may be sexist, I may be, homophobic or Islamophobic. How to notice those moments so that I can without feeling guilty. I've been teaching women's class, but sometimes I can act like a male. How to be aware of this. So mindfulness helps me become aware so that I can have more time for myself so that I can work on that, which is important. Then culture of humility. The culture of humility is very important for professors because we think that once we got a PhD, you know. So how to really be open to learn from my students. Also teach how to really learn from other people. And last one is wonder. Wonder is important. Community passion. If I find out people, the Michgians are paid less compared to upper caste in India, if I wonder why they're making less salary means, if I'm a HR person, my programmers coming from Michgian or Dalal background are paid less than the top caste. I need to know what the wonder has to lead to a social transformation and also internal transformation. You go to look at Taj Mahal, someplace you are at awe. So the transformation happens inside and also leads to some sort of transformation by paying attention to disparities. Disparities are here, that means you need to first find out what it is and do something about it. Last one is generosity. It is the interdependence, the Buddhist part. So many people, generosities are involved in my being here. My parents raised me, my teachers taught me, my mentors helped me to be here. Then my students are paying the tuition which pays my salary. That's why I'm studying. So our life is so interconnected. So many people's generosities are involved in being here, including the reservation system, which is important. So when I talk to my students, from morning, one student was very meticulous. Morning gets up, she brushes in the morning to go to bed. She found out there are 52 people's generosities involved in her everyday life. The brush was made in China. From there, the paste, everything comes from there. All different people's labor is involved in where we are. Okay, so all these things are important. When you become mindful, you can meditate, whatever you want to do, or painting, art, everything. But what's what? If you're a mindful person, it's not how long you can meditate. It is how you're going to treat the other person with dignity, which is also very important. Core of babasaheb is talking about dignity a lot in his writing, right? It's also a lot in Periyar's writing. Swayamaryada, self-respect movement, talks about dignity a lot. So my question is, the more you become mindful, you also recognize the dignity of the fellow human being. Can you do that? That's become my litmus test for mindfulness. That's how I teach my students. They are them to look at the dignity of other people at 3 levels. One, on personal level, your own dignity, who you are, how to really carry yourself. Second thing is how you're going to respect the other person, how to treat the other person with dignity. So I may be a greatest mindfulness practitioner, so I can meditate for 10,000 hours, I can sit for 2 hours, but if I don't treat my students with respect, that means I'm not a mindful person, in my opinion. That means I need to recognize the dignity of the other person. The last one is, not only I value my own personhood, other people's dignity, I also need to commit a dignity culture around me. I need to protect people when there are dignity injuries. I should do something about it. If people are mistreated, I should step up and do something about it. That's what mindfulness is for me. That's how I bring the mindfulness idea, Buddhism, and social justice to practical life. In the everyday context, in workplace, how you treat the person. I study janitors in India, Japan, South Korea, France, and the US. So most of the janitor work in India, 95% is done by Dalits. Right. So janitors, how they are treated by the larger population, how to raise awareness, the importance of their work. That's what most of my other research is doing. So I talk about 3 kinds of dignity, and this is probably the model I presented, right? So there are sympathetic joy and compassion, which is how we connect to the rest of the world. You be kind to people when they're going through a difficult time. When you see happiness around us, try to rejoice with it instead of being jealous, and try to spread happiness around you. And to do this, we need to really become aware of our own shortcomings. When we make mistakes, you understand it, stand up, and continue to go, and how to really be kind to yourself. Also have humility to learn from others, pay attention to surprises around us, wonder, and also realize how many people are involved in making who we are. We always think about ourselves, I achieved this, but so many people's generosity is involved in making who I am. All these things will help us to really pay attention to dignity of self, others, and a dignity culture around us. I've done work, the more we become mindful. I teach a mindfulness class for my students. In the beginning of the semester, I look at the mindfulness level, and at the end of the semester, it really improves because of the practice. It also improves their dignity, how they treat the other people. So they talk about janitors, they pay attention to people around them, at least during the semester. We don't know after that, we don't know how enduring it is. But our goal is to really think about how to use different contemporary practices, not just meditation. The whole social justice and mindfulness group have developed several things, like you can dance, you can pray, you can do all kinds of contemporary practices that also help you with your mindfulness, how to cultivate that. So our goal is to really connect babasaheb, Dr. Ambedkar to Martin Luther King's the idea of beloved community, the idea that all our lives are interconnected, where people from different backgrounds can recognize each other's humanity as people. So we are all interconnected, and individual well-being. My well-being is also connected to other people's well-being. That's what beloved community is. Hopefully, we can reaffirm our commitment to creating a beloved community, bring some of the Buddhist principles in our life. The way I talk about this is one model, and there are other models people can present you. But the idea is how to bring about compassion, sympathetic joy, and how to respect the dignity of other people. And I think that is the path babasaheb wants us to lead life. And it is a difficult one, a challenging one. It's not an easy one, but we have to work towards this goal so that we can create a beloved community. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Malingam. Talking about the mindfulness, the regulating the emotions, connecting to others, and various features of the mindset of the personal dignity, and try to show the happiness, how we pay attention to others, and how to get interconnected with by compassion with others, and how this has led to what babasaheb and Dr. Martin Luther King actually expected from all of us. So our next session actually, I think you might have listened a lot of things about from Dr. Koine and Mahalingam, and this is the opportunity for all of you to ask questions about this topic which they have discussed just now. So we'll start with the discussion, panel discussion forum now, and you can take a mic and ask questions. You are free to answer that.
Hello. First of all, thank you so much, Dr. and Dr. for presenting your work. I really enjoyed that as a postdoctoral fellow. I work on health policy issues and I can correlate what you're talking. So I have questions for both of you. First question for Dr. Koine is, you mentioned briefly to your speech that Ambedkarite Buddhists also see in Buddhism the idea of social justice, right? And in my observation, I'm seeing that in North America and UK, that idea of social justice is also propagating with Ambedkarite, trying to settle in this part of the world. And now the debate on social justice is also picking its pace. Do you see that is also happening? Do you agree to that point of view? If you see in Seattle, in California, they're trying to come up with bills on anti-caste concept. So do you see the idea of social justice is also propagating with Ambedkarite Buddhists, moving to different parts of the world? That is question for you. And for Professor Mahalingam, I wanted to ask, my work also revolves around workplace well-being and mental health. And very recently, US Surgeon General actually published his report, and he gave his framework to work on workplace well-being. But many of the initiatives nowadays are very much centered on fixing the problem for the employee. They do not look at what employer is doing to the employee. And mindfulness and all these training sessions I have been proposed as one of the solutions. But that is self-centered. Nobody is talking about the other determinants of at that workplace which influence that person's behavior. So my question to you is how these training sessions can be transformed to train managers and make them more aware and make the situation better for employees as well. Thank you.
So thank you for two very articulate questions. It's very, very much appreciates the engagement with our work, and then, yes, helping to think beyond it. What I've seen, and I want to be very careful and preface what I say here, is that obviously all of you are engaged already in lots of things on the ground, some of which I'm not aware of, and I'm coming at this as a researcher who grew up in a different part of the world and who is just starting to become familiar with things. And so, of course, my perspective on things is necessarily going to be different than, I think, many of yours. So there'll be things that I'll be wrong about, there'll be things I'll be uninformed about, but also, because I'm looking from a different perspective, maybe sometimes I see some things that might not be apparent to other people, I'm not sure. So, are Ambedkarites around the world also being very active in social justice issues? Sure, yes, of course. The challenge that I think that I see is when we're thinking about social justice in different parts of the world, there are already other people who are talking about social justice, meaning something else. And so we use this term, social justice, and it can be a little misleading sometimes, as if this is only one thing that we're all aiming for. Actually, there are a whole lot of people who are aiming for lots of different social justices. And because they use that word doesn't mean necessarily they're working together. So that's one thing that I've observed sometimes with the groups that I've spoken with in different parts of the world is it's one thing, I think, to advocate for the inclusion of anti-caste language in non-discrimination policies, for example, in Seattle, in California, in various universities around the world, around especially in North America. It's one thing to do that, and that makes this very understandable. Another challenge with that is, though, that it's happening in an environment where a lot of people don't understand caste at all, like non-Indians. The whole idea of caste just doesn't make sense. And so to advocate for anti-caste legislation, there's this aspect of communication that happens across even other communities in order for them to even understand what the anti-caste motion is. And that's the challenge, I think, with social justice. And at the end of my talk, the alignment of Ambedkarite and Burakumin people in Japan, which has been a really challenging way, or that has, as much as we might think, well, oppressed people in different places, historical discrimination, they should naturally find ways to work together. That's actually not been very easy in Japan. And so the challenge of deeply understanding how somebody else is conceiving of social justice, and how somebody else who does not have our same group background, finding that intersectionality, finding that way of communicating our concerns and truly understanding their concerns, that seems to be something that's still kind of growing. I'll say it that way. I hope does that kind of address your question? Good, thank you.
Thank you for the question, which is important, which is the major debate. My work really rests in this debate, right? So a lot of times people think mindfulness, if you become mindful, it will fix your problem. So corporations don't want to really address these structural issues, which you implied. So we call this kind of mindfulness corporate mindfulness, or what we call the McDonaldification of mindfulness, called Mac mindfulness, like a fast food. You 15 minutes, you meditate, you go back to work, you feel good, without changing the system. So in my work, it has been critiqued how mindfulness has been co-opted in a particular way. So in my work, what I'm trying to do is, by pushing the idea of dignity, mindfulness has to be accountable. Mindfulness is not the individual fix, which is important in some level. We have to better improve our self-regulation, everything. But the ultimate goal is, am I reducing dignity injuries around my workplace? That's what I studied. How to really minimize dignity injuries by pushing, using the mindfulness practices to make institutions more accountable. Not just putting everything on the burden on the individual. So you become mindful, it will be good for you. So if there is a problem with you, you are not practicing mindfulness, right? So that really we are questioning that. So my work on dignity really pushes the question. That's why I really bring the social justice component, where of course, when I talk to I do a lot of training workshops. My website is called mindfuldignity.com. If you go there, you can download all the things and how to improve workplace, doctors, I work with doctors, nurses, how to improve their interaction while also changing the structural problems they're facing. And how to really make the question. So by bringing dignity, we really make the question more interesting and also relevant to how people actually feel workplace indignities or mistreatment. Right? So that has been often not talked. If you're depressed, there is your problem. But not what happened in the workplace. Right? How you've been treated in the workplace. I've been studying janitors in Maharashtra, in Mumbai malls. So people, how they don't even pay attention to them in the malls. These are one of the wealthiest people. But something happens, if anything is missing, let's say a teenager goes to the bathroom, leaves their cell phone, janitors take the cell phone. It's not the case because there is camera all over. So that these stereotypes, how it hurts them, and how to really make the institutions look more accountable to these questions. That's what I call the more socially focused mindset. Thank you.
Other questions?
I'm Prerna. I'm a PhD student at Northwestern University in the Rhetoric, Media and Publics program. Thank you, Professor Koine, and wonderful and enriching presentation. I have a question to Professor Koine. So this comes from my observation. I am in Pune, and I've been going and working in Nagpur for some time, and to me, I think your research is very significant, but I would really like to know from you that from your observation from such a long time on Buddhism in Nagpur, for me, I think for what I see is that the influence of foreigners, as in Japanese or Taiwanese or Sri Lankan Buddhism in Nagpur, has actually influenced Buddhism in some manner, that it has somewhat become a little more apolitical, let's say. I think it's a larger word to say that, but it is also distancing Ambedkarites from Ambedkarite idea and have become an influence of only become Buddhist or not being close to Ambedkarite ideas. So, what do you think about it?
Thank you. That's a fantastic question. If I had more time, I could actually talk directly about that point, because I think I'm eventually going to be writing a book on this research, and that is the central issue. So as I've talked with various Ambedkarites, there was one in particular, Dr. Santosh Raut, so he very helpfully talked about two poles, and I'm sure this is not news to you, but two poles between that Ambedkarite Buddhists tend to operate between the political pole and the more spiritual religious pole. And I've certainly talked to a lot of Ambedkarites, as I'm sure as you have as well, who are more on the political pole, who are very suspicious of like meditation and any of this stuff that like kind of takes the edge off of people. Like we have to, there's a fight that people are struggling and doing other things. Maybe that pulls us away from it or draws us into other issues. So on the political pole, that's really there. At the time, Buddhist identity for a lot of these people is still extremely important as a marker of political and social difference. So Buddhism, that word, is still there, and I definitely don't want to say that these people are bad Buddhists or they're not doing it right. That's not my way. And I don't think it helps us understand what they're up to. And there's obviously a lot of people who are doing something between these two poles. It's not as if